President Barack Obama redirected NASA's focus away from the moon towards longer space exploration, preparing for missions to asteroids and Mars. However, recent years have seen a shift back to lunar exploration under the Artemis program. During President Donald Trump's and continued by President Joe Biden, marks a significant agreement effort to return humans to the moon's surface. The Artemis 1 mission, launched with the powerful SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft, represents NASA's ambitious steps towards this goal. Let's go and explore how this renewed commitment to lunar exploration could shape humanity's future in space, and the real reason for going back to the moon. In the year 2010, Barack Obama gave a speech at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where he told NASA to shift its focus from the moon to exploring further into space, like an asteroid or Mars. "We already been to the moon," he said. "There's a lot more space out there to explore and learn from." Since then, the United States has changed its plan and is now focusing on the moon again. Under the Artemis program, which started during President Donald Trump's time and continues under President Joe Biden, NASA has strong support from both political parties for one of its biggest space missions in years. This started with the launch of the big SLS moon rocket and the Orion spacecraft on November 16th, which has a mission without any astronauts. The Artemis 1 mission will be followed by more flights with astronauts, first to orbit the moon and then to land on its surface. Obama's concern still remains. "We've already been to the moon, so why go back?" Thomas Zurbuchen, who recently retired from NASA, says the reason why is the discovery of water. "We need to realize that the moon we're going back to is very different from the one we visited during the Apollo missions," Zurbuchen said in an interview. "Back then, the moon seemed dry, but now we know a lot more about it. That's why NASA wants to set up a long-term base on the moon. This'll help us learn how to live in space for longer periods. Scientists can also study the moon to learn about how Earth was formed, and the moon could be a starting point for future missions to Mars and other faraway places." The blue areas show shadowed parts of the moon's south pole, which are interesting because they might contain water or ice. Water is crucial for human survival, and its components, hydrogen and oxygen, can be used as rocket fuel. This means the moon could act as a refueling station in space, which is important for long missions. Spacecraft could get more fuel from the moon instead of carrying it all from Earth. Since the moon's gravity is only a sixth of Earth, it's easier to launch from there to other places in the solar system. The moon also has a lot to reveal about how the solar system and Earth were created. Without an atmosphere, the moon is like a time capsule. The Apollo astronauts' footprints are still there, unaffected by weather or wind, just like the marks left by asteroids and comets that hit the moon over billions of years, showing what the early solar system looked like. Reaching the moon is very challenging. Living there is even more difficult, and NASA doesn't have much experience in that area. The last Apollo mission, Apollo 17, stayed on the moon for just over 3 days, and that was in 1972. Transitioning from short-term visits to long-term stays on the moon will require a lot of resources and new technologies. That's why NASA plans to build a nuclear reactor on the moon. They will require power, transportation, and the ability to utilize the moon's resources. This includes habitats, vehicles for exploration, and equipment for mining, as well as tools for extracting water and shaping lunar soil into bricks for construction. These efforts are still in their early stages, and NASA has not yet secured the funding needed for the long term. NASA is developing technologies to support astronauts on the moon for long periods. NASA and the Energy Department awarded $5 million contracts to 3 companies to develop nuclear-powered systems. These systems could be ready by the end of the decade for testing on the moon, generating 40 kilowatts of power, enough for 6 or 7 households for 10 years. "They're investing real money in this technology," said Casey Trier from the Planetary Society. "NASA plans to build solar farms with vertical arrays to capture sunlight," Pam Melroy, a deputy NASA administrator and former astronaut, explained. "Just as people used local materials to build on Earth, we should use lunar regolith for structures. NASA is funding projects to explore this." The New Space Age, this series explores the rise of the private space industry, NASA's long-term goals, and ambitions for other space agencies, discussing potential societal impacts. Many people underestimate how risky lunar regolith can be, especially to spacesuits and human lungs, former NASA administrator Jim Bridenstine explained. During the Apollo missions, regolith that entered the capsule was extremely hazardous due to its fine, sharp nature. NASA plans to use the Volatile's investigating polar exploration rover, Viper, for this task. Scheduled for late 2024, Viper will explore the moon's south pole on a 100-day mission. Viper will help us map where the ice is located, Melroy stated. The map will guide astronauts upon arrival, showing them where to find ice and the best places to potentially build a refueling station. The moon poses many challenges, but it also offers a great opportunity as NASA aims to establish a permanent settlement on what some call the eighth continent. The moon is just 3 days away from Earth, closely enough for astronauts to quickly return in emergencies, similar to the Apollo 13 mission. It's an ideal place to learn how to live sustainably in deep space. The lunar poles are estimated to hold at least 600 billion kilograms of water ice, equivalent to filling 240,000 Olympic-sized pools. The moon also holds platinum group metals, rare earth metals, and helium-3, a potential fuel for nuclear fusion. These resources could kickstart a lunar economy that sustains a permanent human presence. NASA's Orion spacecraft was towed to the USS Portland after splashing down near Baja California, Mexico. For Artemis, NASA is relying on the commercial space industry led by SpaceX. SpaceX will require the spacecraft to transport NASA astronauts to the moon. Jeff Bezos' Blue Original is also aiming for the moon, developing a spacecraft for NASA missions. Blue Origin has also hired experts in extracting lunar resources and recently acquired Honeybee Robotics, known for its technology used in Mars rovers. Our technology helps scientists study planetary regolith across our solar system, the company's website explains. We built equipment for missions from Mercury to Saturn, including asteroids and comets. The successful Artemis 1 mission was a major step, a flawless test flight where the Orion spacecraft flew close to the lunar surface, taking stunning photos before returning to Earth. Administrator Bill Nelson highlighted Apollo's legacy of achieving the once impossible. As NASA prepares for its Artemis program, returning humans to the moon after decades, the possibilities for exploring and learning are great. The moon will become a springboard for future deep space missions. From studying its basics to potentially fueling spacecraft, the moon offers important insights and practical advantages. As we look forward, the renewed commitment to lunar exploration is said to reshape our understanding of space and pave the way for humanity's continued journey into the cosmos.